Shall we move on to our main review, which is Zero?
इतनी बारिश में मेरे से दिल्ली चले आए सिंह साहब।
38 की उम्र में जो लोग कुंवारे घूमते हैं ना पांडे, उन्हें बारिश से डर नहीं लगता।
मुझे लगता है ना आपके स्टैंडर्ड की एशिया में ही नहीं है।
झूठ बोला तुमने मुझसे। इस कोयले की खादान में तुम ये हीरा छुपाए बैठे हो।
ये तुम्हारे मतलब की नहीं है।
हमें तो लग रही है हमारे मतलब की।
अरे यार ये हिलती बहुत है।
अरे तो हम भी लेंगे इसके साथ।
ये उड़ता तीर है ठाकुर साहब।
लेना है हमें।
फोटो में तो व्हील चेयर दिखी ही नहीं।
Let's do it.
Hey. This has been a bad year for Khans, man. Like, I was wondering, is it because of our podcast? Like, have we like messed up? Like, like tapped into some kind of like, spirit of what's going on with the Khans?
I will say this though about Zero. It was a swing and a miss, but it was a proper swing, which neither Race 3 nor Thugs of Hindustan were.
Yeah.
So I'll give Shahrukh credit for that.
Oh yeah.
But I think
he keeps doing that, right? He keeps taking these big swings. Most of them are not working super great, but I never regret having seen them. I think I understand why he tried that particular thing that he tried, and it's not the same thing he just did before, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. I think both, like all Rais, I would say, Fan, even Jab Harry met Sejal to a certain degree, I think even Chennai Express, I would say, these were all kind of swings for him. Ravan, even,
for sure.
So he has been trying to, but it's not really worked out for him. I think Stacy from Bollywood Spice was asking me about, why do you think none of these three movies have really worked? And I was kind of thinking about that really. And I think what's funny is because that the general idea that people seem to be having, it's the end of the Khan era. And I vehemently do not agree with that. And I think together with it's the end of the Khan era, they also are pitching again these young guys against like the Ayushman and Rajkumar Rao and Vicky Kaushal as they'll take over from the Khans. Or I just don't agree with that. I think if these guys are threatening anybody, it's kind of the B-level squad, the Shahid Kapoors, the Hrithik Roshans, and I think I've made this point before, but those are in danger. I don't think I basically think the Khans made bad movies this year. And that's kind of the reason why it didn't work for completely different reasons. I think Race was just a terrible team. Remo is a bad filmmaker. He doesn't make good movies. And I think for Salman, it was basically just a holiday, and when Salman is on a holiday, it does not work. He needs directors that push him or, understand who Salman is. So people that push him are Sanjay Leela Bhansali, they're Kabir Khan. People that understand him are Ali Abbas Safar, or even I would say Abhinav Kashyap from Dabang. I think those are the people he should be working with, but people that just are pushovers for him, like Remo, that's the movie that you then get. I think Thugs I've already spoken about. I think there was just a disconnect between what the audience wanted and what the producers wanted and the filmmakers wanted. And I think it's really prevalent in the switch where, if you were making this movie, it would be about Fatima Sana Sheikh, but because Amir is there and you need that China money, it completely swings to Firangi Malla. And I think it never really recuperates from that, unfortunately. But yeah, we're talking about Zero. Beth, what did you think about Zero?
I don't know. I mean, it was so strange. I think it was at least three movies shoved together. When it ended, the friend I saw it with and we just looked at each other like, what was that? Because it just, I don't know. I don't know what they were trying to do. I don't know what they thought they were doing. I don't know what they thought they did in retrospect. Like, it had that sort of feel of things being, parable level, like allegory level. What's actually real within the world of this film. I just don't understand it at all. And I completely agree. It was a very thorough swing and a miss. But I don't. Okay, this is a very different movie, but I have to make this comparison. I read somewhere an article when Gods of Egypt came out where people were talking about, like, no, actually, how did this get made? Like, what is the chain of decisions that led to Gods of Egypt? And I would like to know that for this movie. Because I think with Shahrukh's other experiments, I'm pretty sure I get exactly what he was trying to do, and there are things that he succeeded at and things that he didn't, and the film as a whole, not just him. And here, I don't understand what any single piece of this thought it was doing.
Yeah.
But I will also say, if it had been made 40 years ago, in the late 70s, which is my favorite Hindi film era, I think I would have really liked this, right? Like it has that masala feel of, we basically know where this is going to end, but we have no idea how it's going to get there. And it did deliver that for sure. Like I did not actually expect him to go into space. Or for it to take 15 years for him to come back once he did go in space. So I just, like where is it in the movie? Maybe 2/3 of the way through that the chimpanzee shows up? Right, and you're like, wait, what? And then there's a baby? Wait, what?
I know.
It is all kinds of bananas, and none of it, taught me anything, demonstrated anything, and, sort of enriched anyone's characters. Like, I just don't understand.
I love how this movie treated the entire Mars chapter, which is a movie with Matt Damon, like Martian, right? It treated like the side salad with a biryani, where you have that like dry looking cucumber, tomato, and mooli. That's how it treated he went to Mars, people. It's not a small thing. Like, this is a big thing. Yeah.
Going to Mars is treated with the same amount of anything as the children who bully him in the streets of Orlando, New York, wherever that was.
Yeah. It's like, like what you were saying, like it's like so many different things. So there's this thing with Hindi cinema, right? I think we discussed this at the time of Jaga Jasoos, in that it's really difficult to build a sort of to build a movie that sort of floats above reality, like even Hindi movie reality, like any kind of like whimsical sort of like this is not a whimsical film. Like the tone is not whimsical, but it's in that sort of neighborhood, right?
Because it does evoke some sort of magical quality, right? In the world that it inhabits. Yeah.
But it's also got these characters that sound very real and very grounded, like the way like Shahrukh's accent and the, like the way it begins, like the movie begins and everything, like you're like, oh, okay, so this is like a real thing. And then the movie's like, no, but then all these fantastical things are happening. So you're like, wait, so it's not a real thing. But it's like, no, it's a real thing. There's like a baby and also a chimpanzee. So you're just like, I don't understand. Like, what is happening? Yeah. So I think that is it, and that's actually a failure of the filmmaking, I would say. It doesn't like it grabs you, but it doesn't take you along for the jump that when it jumps. So you're still standing down, like watching them in the sky, and you're like, wait, how did you get there? Like I don't know how to get where you are. So I think that's what the movie is.
I think, like you, this movie left me with so many questions, and I still can't wrap my head around it. I know that it wasn't an enjoyable experience for me. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like it, but I'm still thinking about it. And one of the main questions, like I have two questions. Like the first one, I'll answer myself because that's how I work. But the second one, I want to kind of, I want to ask you guys. The first one is just rhetorical. I just don't understand what appealed Shahrukh to this role. And I think. I think it was Anishok, our friend, who pointed that out, who doesn't listen to our podcast, so I can just call her whatever I want, but she's not my friend. But she said that Shahrukh just leaves total control to his filmmakers, to his directors. And he did this with, his with Fan. He did this with the Rohit Shetty movies, even Ravan, and he just lets them do whatever he wants, and he's just a tool for them to use. And it almost feels the way that it was Salman's career in the late 2000s, he was just like, like ghar ki baat hai, you're a director, you're my friend, just do whatever you want and I'll just be there. Although Salman was lazy about it, Shahrukh is never lazy about any of his choices. He fully commits and he gives his 100%, and there really is nobody like Shahrukh. I think, if anybody would make me want to believe that this obnoxious little creature can still be charming enough to seduce both Katrina and Anushka, it's only Shahrukh can do that. Like on screen, he still has that magical quality to him that nobody else has. And even when he has like weird brown dyed hair, I don't know what was going on with his hair in this movie too. Anyway, but the second question I want to ask, leading to us, and I want to ask you guys this: do you think Anand L is slightly overhyped as a director? Because he's only made 2 or 3 movies that have been like critically acclaimed, and I wouldn't even say they're classics or anything like that. He made like both Tanuved's Manus, and then he made Ranjana, which was problematic.
Yeah, I don't like this Tanuved's Manu anyway. Like, I don't like.
No, same.
So why is he like suddenly some kind of like like voice?
Because he produces.
He produces, yes, he does produce.
Yeah.
But as a filmmaker, right? Like, I don't know, I feel he's slightly overhyped, to be honest. I don't know. Do you guys agree with that, Beth?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he makes better production choices than he does directorial ones, which is same, I would say, with Keijo, right? Like, I appreciate that people are willing to put their money into better things, but I wish he could have brought some of that to this.
Yeah. You didn't like any of the Tanuved's menus either?
The first one I think is okay. The second one I think is pretty reprehensible.
Yeah. Same.
I've actually not seen the second one even.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah, no, it's bad.
Because I had a copy without subtitles and I couldn't understand anything that second Kangana was saying with the teeth in her mouth. And she has a very strong accent. I just couldn't understand it, like what she was saying. So
and she's the only person in that film worth listening to. So yeah, definitely don't see it.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know. And what I also was thinking, like, obviously there's the small town setting that Anand L movies have, right? Which this has to a certain degree. But it is that kind of Habib Faisal kind of space, Manish Sharma kind of space, that they all kind of make these movies. But what I think Anand L movies make it different is that his characters are usually unlikable, or they have very unlikable traits to them. Again, bringing back Tannu, they're not even unlikable, they're almost abrasive to a certain degree. And I think,
you mean almost? They are abrasive.
Yeah. And I think that's what also Bawa is being. He's being abrasive as fuck. He's
an asshole, like an
He
outsider.
really is. Yeah.
And what I also find with Anand L movies is that the good guy is like a puddu. He's like the weakest person ever because he's a good guy or a good person. And I was thinking
And he's always Madhavan for some reason.
Yeah, Madhavan in this one, Madhavan in Tanuved's Menu, but Swara Bhaskar in Ranjana, Anushka to a certain degree here. Everybody that's actually, the counterpoint to the abrasive characters is like they're slightly idiotic because they're good. Their goodness is their stupidity, it feels. And I think that's also what I feel is kind of the problem in Zero, that Anushka's character, it just didn't work for me at all. Like, why does she take him back? Why?
So the person I went to see this with is a librarian, and she actually has built up the nation's largest collection of South Asian comics in a library. So you should come see it. But she said, what I took away from that movie is that you should send all of your horrible ex-boyfriends to space. And I was like, yeah, that is. I mean, so she too is a horrible person, because really you shouldn't send people you dislike to space.
Yeah, but apparently...
But if you have the means, by all means.
Yeah, but apparently you can just line up in front of Nasser in a queue and then they send you the space. That's how it works? There's like a ticket system?
Even till the very end, I was like, no, he's not actually going to go. No, like, that's not going to happen. And then it actually happened. And I was just like, what?
Yeah.
With as much training montage as, like, Chuck Day. What's going on?
It felt really weird because he was doing these, like biking and he had like all his biceps pulling out, but he was like 4 feet. It was really, really weird.
And what do hurdles have to do with being in a capsule in space?
Yeah. Or then at least play it then as a joke. Do one thing or the other, like it's not either played like a joke, it's part of the serious training, but then it also doesn't make any damn sense. And then they were starving him apparently in a room or something. Is that what they were doing?
Right. Yeah.
What kind of space training is this? Nobody starves anybody.
Well, I was just reminded that NASA, the actual one, is under the control of the executive branch in the United States, which I didn't know. So, starving people and throwing them in a room sounds about right for us.
Boom.
Like, again, I was reading Bharadwaj Rangan's review about it, and he was seeing all these meta-narratives in it, it's about Shahrukh not being able to recreate their chemistry with these leading ladies. I was like, yeah, I could read it like that too, right? Like Anushka pulling out a gun on stage while she's giving a presentation to NASA can be an indictment of the US gun culture. It totally can, but it's not. It's just stupid writing. Why does she have a gun with her when she's on stage? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, how did she get that in there? Because we saw the security.
Yeah, and nobody's stopping Boa from like kidnapping her kid.
Right, and her whole family is on stage, but nobody else is except for the chimp handler.
Yeah, where is that chimp handler? Like, the chimp is going totally crazy on stage, and nobody kind of comes like... Anushka has to do that too. She has to pick up pens from the ground. She has to get, and also train the monkey. It makes no sense. How much heavy lifting can the poor girl do? She has cerebral palsy.
Does she?
Why does she have cerebral palsy? Like, that was the other thing. I was like sitting there.
Why
is
his friend blind? What?
It's just.
But is that the point, right? That just like people are different and it doesn't need to be commented on, which again I can appreciate, but I don't think that's what they're doing because they hit it so hard in other scenes.
Yeah, and like every single person who's disabled in this film gets like that pointed out to them in like very brutal ways.
Yeah.
Right.
Like throughout especially Shahrukh. Like Shahrukh is like, but he's not even like, is he supposed to have dwarfism? Because that's not what his body like suggests. He just seems to be like short.
Yeah.
Like that's not dwarfism.
I don't know what he has, and I've kind of skirted around using any terms at the moment for the entire review because I don't know what he has. He just seems short, like you said.
Yeah, because like in all the like their interviews and everything, all the promotions, they keep saying vertically challenged.
Yeah.
I've never actually. So like the guy that plays what's his name?
Peter Dinklage.
Yes, Peter Dinklage, like talks about it like quite a bit. Like like he talks about having been able to like build a career despite his condition, and he refers to himself as having like dwarfism, like that's a thing, and it's a medical condition, and but that's not what
because that's not what Boa has, right?
Yeah, like there's a look to that body shape, like when you have it, which Boa doesn't have. Boa's just like Shahrukh, but like smaller. So you're like
and 38 years old.
Yeah, 38 years old. Maybe it was just misdirection, making us forget that part, which is kind of the bigger scam than his dwarfism. I heard the term primordial dwarfism thrown around, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. I'm being careful because I don't know about these terms. So, but the movie doesn't either, so we could just do whatever we want in a way. But I think what for me encapsulated this movie was really that cameo scene with all the heroines. because we have Rani, we have Kajol together, which was also weird that those were. I thought those two didn't get along. You have Juhi.
Yeah, they made them hold hands, right?
Yeah,
Did you notice that? You're like, oh, no, they're really, really together. See?
Yeah. And then Charisma is in there too, which is awesome. But I don't understand why Charisma is in there, but amazing.
She was available.
Yeah. Sri Devi is in it.
Shahrukh's actually weirdly close to Karishma for some reason. Like, he's always spoken about, like, Karishma in, like, the highest terms. He always talks about, like, how Babita is, like, this amazing mom and is, like, raised two beautiful daughters and everything. Like, he's very nice to Karishma. Like, even more than to Bebo. Like, he's nice to Bebo, but he's really, really nice to Karishma all the time. I've noticed that about him.
I do think she looks like a wonderful person, like Karishma. I don't know.
She looks really sweet.
Yeah, she does. Yeah. So we have Sri Devi, which actually I got a bit emotional when I saw her.
Me too.
That got to me. I was watching it with my wife, and it got to her. Oh my God, she's like a screen goddess, man. Like, just seeing her this way for the final time, it was wow. It was amazing. And then Deepika shows up, and it was so weird because this whole so the Deepika scene clearly has been done with additional, dubbing to add the joke of now you're married. But it then also posits a timeline where Sridevi was alive when Deepika got married.
Oh, that's true.
Which is so weird to me. Like, it didn't look like all of these women were together, shot together. It seemed like they were shot separately and then CGI together, because none of them are really interacting except the two couples. So Charisma and Sridevi, and then Kajol and thing. But I think Jui, Alia and Deepika seem to be totally separate from what's going on. And then, but they still kind of push on, and it creates this kind of artificiality, but it also adds this glamour cameo factor to it. And honestly, none of it works, but they still push on. They still add this joke of, ab to tumhari shaadi ho gayi hai, now you're married, now you have time. But what does it amount to? And why was then Katrina not there, who's actually part of the movie? And it could actually, be kind of a meta commentary about Babita Kumari and then Katrina too. And it was just like a lost opportunity. I didn't understand it. I think, again, Bharatwaj Rangan, I just read it, so I'm kind of like repeating what he said. He said that it was maybe kind of a meta commentary about Shahrukh being unable to create the same magic on screen that he was before with these actresses. But I just don't think that's true. I just think it was just random stuff, and they wanted to get some cameos in there. And apparently Alia takes a lot of selfies. Is that something that's known about Alia? I had no clue.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Also, like, I'm just over this whole, like, Shahrukh referential in every single movie that he does. Like, I get it. Like, Farah did it well. It was a good gig.
Yeah.
It should have ended about 10 years ago.
And he does it at least 7 times in this movie, right? Like, he does it in Mera Naam too. Then he does it obviously in the cameo scene. Then he also does it with the Salman dance, because Salman does his move and then he's in the back front doing the move. So it happens many, many times.
And it's just unnecessary. Like, I understand why this group, like this generation of directors does this, because, I had like an epiphany when we were talking about Amitabh basically doing like Amitabh cosplay in all his movies. And like, you guys were talking about like how, like, this generation of directors grew up watching his films. And in this Shadi season, like all the, like the Ambani Shadi and everything, I was just noticing that all the songs that they play and all the songs that all the star kids sing on like TikTok and everything, like all of those are Shahrukh Khan songs, right? Mm-hmm. So I like that 90s Shahrukh Khan thing. It's a definite hangover in Bollywood these days. So I understand why these filmmakers would want to incorporate that into the movies, especially when they have the man himself in their movie and he's very game for whatever they throw at him. But oh my God, for the love of God, stop it. It's not cute anymore.
I think this occurred to me while you were talking. I feel like it's it's the response to aging and the response to we're not going to have him forever. And so, you know what I mean? Like, we're kind of doubling
preserving
down.
Him? We're mummifying him on
preserving / kind of trying to clone something from a long time ago that we don't need to clone because we can actually just revisit it whenever we want more easily than ever. But that this sort of, one more for the road kind of thing before he's actually shot into space and then comes back 15 years later somehow. I don't know. Yeah. I appreciated that one of the callbacks to his earlier movies was you remember in Kank, there's that weird kidnapping scare and the guy with the hood is running around taking children. I was like, oh, he did that. That's a really weird one to bring back, but all right.
Oh my God, I didn't put that together right now.
Black Beast or what was that? What he was called?
Yeah,
something
the Black
like
Beast. Yeah, the black something, the Black Terror, the Black Beast, something. Well, did we ever find out what that was about in Kank? Like, it literally was like this big plot point, and then it just like vanished.
I'd have to rewatch it to find out, and I'm not gonna.
But I have to, just to kind of spin the positive a little bit about it, I did really like all of the 3 performances. I know people are pushing back on Anushka a lot, that her portrayal of cerebral palsy wasn't consistent, I think. That's what a lot of the criticism is about. I thought it was okay. I think it was the Anupama Chopra review where she was saying, if you want a better portrayal, go watch Margarita with a Straw. I was like, this is not the audience of Margarita with a Straw. You can't just they're making a very, very different product than Margarita with a Straw, and I don't think they're going for authenticity. And I think, again, that lifting up the pen scene, that's just cruel, obviously, but that's the kind of dynamic they're going for. And I think Anushka does a great job, and I think she's just emoting that much with her eyes and reacting to so many things. I think she did a pretty good job. It really worked for me. Shahrukh was great, I think, in his role. Anushka was great in what she did. And we're coming back to Sammy again for full circle. I think Katrina was awesome in this movie. She was really, for me, the best part of it.
I think yes, this is the kind of I think the limits, the boundaries of her capabilities as an actress, where she has that screen presence and she has that really modern feel to her, which is why I think a lot of people were like, why is her name Babita Kumari? Because she's clearly not a Babita Kumari,
Yeah.
Which is why I think a lot of people brought that up. But she's also really good in this part because it's playing to her strengths. She gets to dress the way she does and she gets to say the things that she does. And she doesn't have to talking like Halasuldu or anything, as apparently she did in Thugs of Hindustan, where she was playing like a tawaif. She's not doing something that is completely ridiculous for her to play. So I think that really worked in her favor. And it's funnily enough, all the people that were calling her an item girl and everything, she's playing that kind of character in this film. So she's actually doing a really good job of delivering what people's expectations of her are, I think. So, and also that, a lot of people have pointed out already, that unnecessary Kapoor X thing.
Right. Yeah.
Which again, that's not her fault. That's how the part was written, and that was how, they probably talked her into it, and they were probably like, oh, what would be cool if he did this? And I feel bad for her. I feel like that was exploitative and ridiculous.
I liked it, actually. I liked it in the fact that it almost feels like Agar Tum Saath Ho with Deepika. It's replaying that part, that breakup clearly in Tamasha was, based on real things. And I think that's what they were maybe trying to go for with this Babita Kumari. And I just feel, Katrina, throughout her many breakups and all that, she's always taken the high ground, and I just felt nice to get down and dirty and just see Katrina just say, fuck you, to the Kapoors and us and everybody else. And I just thought that was kind of cool, letting loose. And I do think she's had an image from the start, and she does like actively try to deconstruct that image to a certain degree, especially, being in that bathtub drunk with the team around her, guiding her every move. And I think that's kind of, maybe the idea that she's a very manufactured star with the people around her. And I just thought that was really cool, the way it was done. But again, go ahead.
I would also say that this is like a performance that she would not have been able to deliver 10 years ago. And you can clearly see the growth in her as a performer.
Yeah.
And I give her props for that.
Yeah.
So I didn't buy, I don't think she's a good crier. And this particular role had a lot of crying in it, but I 100% believed that this character would fall for and then not be able to extract herself from Abedul, right? That seemed exactly right to me, and I didn't know he was in the film, so when he showed up, I was like, eh? And then I thought, oh, no, that makes sense to me somehow, and I can't quite explain that, but I felt like, yeah, this person would be seeking a particular thing that this guy provides or pretends to provide. That rang really true to me somehow. So I thought that was good casting, I guess, for both of them then, I would have to say.
I did like that all of the Khans have kind of come together to give a Deol revival. I wonder if Amar will be casting Sunny or Dharminder in his next one, just to kind of like give all of them a new chance. Yeah.
The Deol charity.
Yeah, the Deol charity. It's a shame this movie didn't work for me. Like Malika Dua was in this too, right? Again, completely.
I was glad to see her.
Yeah, I was happy to see Abedul. I was happy to see Malika Dua, but again, I was hoping she would maybe be part of the recruits or have something bit more to do. But it was really just like a very short shot in there. The whole NASA America thing just didn't work to me. The reveal that he has a daughter did nothing to me. Like, me, the guy that cries at anything about daughter related, it did nothing to me. And
it didn't make any sense at all.
You never see her again. He has no connection. He just leaves her for Mars. He just knew that he has a daughter and he just leaves her. But apparently also Anushka Sharma is just leaving her outside alone in the room, and then she just comes out, beta, you're sitting on the bed. It's ridiculous. So it just seemed like an afterthought, and it made me miss Janeman, where Salman's world like shatters when he figures out that he has a girl,
I also think that a lot of people who've criticized the movie as being like disability porn are actually pretty on the money. Like it is, like this is not a movie that is particularly good at conveying what a disability is or like how it affects the lives of these people. But I will give it props for one thing. Like it shows like somebody with cerebral palsy, as the movie says, like however inconsistent the performance might be, I don't know, but it does show her as being a sexual being, and it does show her as being a mother, and it does do all of that, and for that I give it props. But again, they do that Forrest Gump thing where he's like emotionally saying, is she like me, is she like you, but it has no payoff. It's just there to add something. I don't even... Like, it almost feels like Sultanish, where, Anushka has this anger because her, something related the husband did to the child, or, that kind of anger holding on to it. But it didn't work at all in this movie for me compared to what they happened in Sultan, Obviously, they lost the child, but yeah.
Another thing I flat out did not like about Zero is that in that very beginning dream sequence when Shahrukh is, I think we're supposed to understand he's actual Shahrukh regular height in his own dream. Is that right?
Yes, I think.
And it's not very long, but I thought it was really cheap of the filmmakers to do that, to not stick to this is not the Shahrukh you've seen before. It's like they didn't crust that I don't know. It just felt like, why is this in here when everything you've been touting about this movie is that he's different? But you didn't even make him physically different consistently yourselves. You had to give in that sort of, I don't know if it was fan service. I don't know if it's supposed to remind us that this isn't real in some way. I don't know. But I just thought, why are you introducing him as someone who this character isn't, when this character seems to be pretty comfortable with who he is and who he is as an asshole?
Yeah. I never think the movie, drew a line on where it stood with any of these things. Like, there is this part about, showing somebody with cerebral palsy as a complete person, that she can be a mother, she can be a sexual being, and she can be a scientist. But there are other disabilities that the movie makes enough fun of, so it just never draws a line on what it wants to be, so it's a weird one. What I did really like also is the Mere Naam 2 picturization, which was so Bollywood.
Yes, that was charming.
And what I particularly loved is that little girl that they brought, like Sia, has she's like a miniature version of Anushka, but she can dance with Shahrukh at the same length. I thought that was really cute the way it was done. It was probably the highlight of the movie. And this is the Shahrukh we know, right? This is the Shahrukh we love. This is, he can romance a tree. And he has wet hair and a white shirt and a black tux on, that's totally up. No, not Amrita. Amrita's white linen Shahrukh. Anisha's tuxedo Shahrukh. That really, really love. I love that. I love the song. I love the picturization. I also love the way Anushka is, reacting to him. And that's something that's not easy to do, and she's in her pajamas in the cold, wet rain, and she just needs to be like, you can see her falling in love with Bawa, and I thought that was really done beautifully too. Did you guys like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other positives or negatives or anything that we forgot? I mean, for me, the whole NASA thing did not work. I think it was completely unnecessary.
Calling back again to our friend Jay Arjun Singh, who wrote a piece a couple weeks ago about what kind of are things that tend to happen in movies where the male lead is notably shorter than other people, and he was talking about how often the women have to come down right to the size of that person, and that they have those repeated lines about seeing each other eye to eye. And I liked that the anti-gravity training room was used for the purposes of sort of making height no longer a factor. Right. That was pretty interesting. But then the movie undoes that by putting making Bawa go as tall away from Earth as you can possibly go, and then anyone has been before. So, like, as for all their stuff about him being small, he becomes huge. And I thought that, like, in a different film, that would have been kind of heartwarming and interesting, and maybe would have reflected, I don't know, personal growth or something like that. But it didn't. It just seemed like it was kind of undoing something interesting that it had actually accomplished.
It was also funny that he suddenly became like a nationalist. Like, suddenly there were like nationalistic reasons why he wanted to go to Mars, and I was like, where did this come from? The Bawa is not a nationalist. He does not care about anybody except himself.
He doesn't care. Yeah. Really. And also, did he tell his family he was going to the United States, and then maybe that he got into this, TV show Mars training program thing, and why is his friend still there? And
yeah, because it's so easy, just to come into the US and join the NASA program.
That visa that you got.
Yeah, the Muslim visa.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think it's a swing and a miss, unfortunately. Amrita, any final thoughts on Zero?
I wish it had worked.
Yeah.
What do you want Shahrukh to do next, to be honest? Like, he's tried a lot of things in the last few years.
Amrita and I have been saying this for years, he needs to do a film with Tubakar Banerjee.
Yeah, that would be
That's the answer.
Why?
And I know, Awesome, you're not a fan, but
no, I'm trying to. My question is why. I didn't say no. I want to say why.
I think Dabakar knows what to do with adults, and I think that, like you were saying, if Shahrukh trusts his directors, this is a great person to trust to do something as a grown-up. And one of his more successful films, maybe not money-wise, but recently, is Dear Zindagi, where he is a grown-up.
Yeah.
He's a flawed grown-up, but he's a grown-up, and that is what he needs to do. And I think Rais had some of that as well.
Yeah.
And Rais worked really well for me. And Fan also has that because the quote-unquote actual star Shahrukh is a grown-up. And that is where he needs to go. He can pretend not to be 53, but he can't pretend to be in his 30s. And he just needs to live in a grown-up world and to try somebody who enjoys who has fun with movie making, but who isn't quite so filmy maybe. And I don't think Shahrukh needs to stay away from filminess for forever, but I want him to try that and see how it goes for him and see if people, if he likes doing that and maybe if audiences like him doing that.
Like, he can be younger than he is, but he can't be like doing what he was doing in like When Harry Met Sejal. Like, he can't be like playing Ranbir Kapoor characters. He can't be doing that. You know?
Yeah.
Dear Zindagi is probably like the most that I have liked Shahrukh in a very long time, because he was just such a grown-up, and he was it sounded like he had like a complex life, but I also appreciated the fact that Gauri never forgot that this was Alia's movie. Like, she didn't like suddenly go into like exploring that that background. So it was very much on background. So it was like a really good movie, and it was a really good use of Shahrukh, and it was a really good character. And I think that if he did something like that again, then I would be super 100% there for it. And if he did it with Dabakar, then that would be great. Another person that I would trust him with is Sriram Raghavan. Like, I think...
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one.
That would work, too. Mm-hmm.
That would be super. Yeah. Make that.
I think that definitely he needs to take a bit more control or interest in the movies he's working on. And then, not that he's not committed, I just feel weird about saying this, but I do think he gives it its 100, but he needs to maybe, take more control and not rely completely on the filmmakers just to, be so enamored with working with Shahrukh to a certain degree. And he maybe does...
Do you think that's because, like, he comes from the 90s where he was working with, like, Yash Chopra and with Mahesh Bhatt and, like, all these people who were, like, proper directors,
Yeah. But I also think he had kind of a career plan where I don't, because he's so big now that the career path has not been set for him anymore. Everything is now uncharted territory. So I don't know which move he needs to make, but every move he makes comes with so much weight and so much, responsibility. And I think he must feel bad about what's going on, with his movies, because he does put his heart in it, and they just don't seem to connect, unfortunately, with him. I do think he needs to scale it back a little bit with the special effects and all that too. Like, I liked Rais, and I liked a lot of Fan. And I think those probably are the best movies he's done in the last probably 10 years, I think. And those were, Fan was sci-fi heavy, but it was scaled back in terms of the story to a certain degree. And when it went all out when he's like running on the streets of Dubrovnik. That's where I think a lot of people, the movie lost people. And Rais was kind of very contained, and I think that really worked. But I guess, again, it got kind of cut. The Mahira storyline got cut, and it had a lot of communal issues when it came out, so it maybe didn't connect with people then. But I think that's kind of the space he maybe needs to work in. Or maybe, get like a Netflix show or something like that. Reconnect with like, like...
Oh, yeah. Great idea.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, like reconnect like Salman did, right? Like Salman reconnected with audiences, with his mass audience by doing Big Brother or, Das Kadam. Shahrukh has always had a more kind of an elitist urban international audience, and I think a good way to do that would be a Netflix, even movie if not show, But I think he could be, he's such a good guy, maybe like a spy show, like a proper spy show with Shahrukh, like
he'd be great.
A James Bond on Netflix. I think that could really work.
And that's a space where he can be, I think we've all talked about how when he's a villain or someone who's got shades of gray, that's much better for him. And that, there's so much room to do that in shows on Netflix and stuff. Can he be added to Sacred Games somehow? Like, that's the best indie film of the year is Sacred Games. Put him in there.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's it for this episode, right? Anything else we want to talk about? Yeah. Well, I just wanted to also say, like, it's the end of the year. This has kind of been like the first year of a Khandaan podcast, and it's been amazing. I think it's been amazing, all the feedback and love we've gotten from everybody. And I think if you want to send us some more feedback and love, do send us a review. It's really very, very important that if people can send us an iTunes review. And actually what I was going to say is we're running a competition for Zero at the moment where I'm doing some giveaways. And I also have some swag bags from the previous giveaways we've done that people didn't collect. So we have a few stuff from Thugs of Hindustan, Sweet Haga, Hitchki, and now Zero. So if people do leave a review, I'll send you one of these gift bags because nobody claimed them, so I can send them to you. And if you are one of the first one, I'll even let you choose which gift bag to send to you. So would be awesome if you guys send us. And yeah, obviously if you can do that, we're very thankful that you're listening to the show. And yeah, it's been a good year. And I'm looking forward to next year. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Beth, for joining us, being our top friend as always, bro.
Anytime. It's super fun.
Yeah. And Amrita, thank you. Thank you for keeping me in my lane the whole year.
Thank you for inviting me onto this thing, by the way. Like, it's been like, we've been friends for a while, but like, this is like really fun.
Yeah, now it's like, ye dosti, hum nahi chhodenge.
I know. Very much.
Cool, guys. Okay, yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll be back in 2019.
Oh!